This is Ian McFarlane. This brief tutorial will walk you through making tables and figures according to APA style using Microsoft Word. This tutorial will use Word 2010, though the process is very similar with all the recent versions of Word, though things might be moved around just a little bit. So to get started, we need a table to build. So I have in SPSS run a quick analysis of wine from 4 different regions of France, and there are ratings for each of these different wines. So I built a quick table with some descriptive statistics, and then I ran a one-way ANOVA to see if there's a difference in rating for these 4 different regions of France. So the first thing I'll do is create an APA style table for the descriptive statistics, which I have here. So if I look here, I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 10 columns, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So if you come into Word and you go to the Insert tab, and you go to Table, and I need 5 rows, and then I need 10 columns. Okay, if I needed to have more columns, or if I needed more than 8 rows, I could go to Insert Table. I'm going to put 10 in the columns, and I'm going to put 5 in the rows. Okay, now there's a couple ways to go about making an APA style table. It's really slick in Word 2010 because you can just choose this default setting right here. Then all you have to do is turn off the banded rows, and you'll have what should look like APA style. Okay, with the borders on the top line and then a border at the bottom. Now that's the quick way to do it. If you're using a different version of Word, things might be a little different. So I want to show you the long way to go about it, just so you have that in your back pocket. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this default setting, and I'm going to highlight the whole table, and I'm going to turn off all the borders. Okay, so now I just have this blank table. For APA style, you need to have a top border on the top, and then the bottom row needs a bottom border, so you can set apart this is what the contents of your table. Okay, for the top row, you also need a bottom border to set aside that these are the headings of the columns. Okay, this is called a header row. Now, one of the things that Word does for you is it comes with this header row checked. That means it's going to boldface everything in this top row. It also has first column checked, so it's going to bold everything in this first column. APA style, we don't need it bolded in the first column, so I'm going to take that off. Okay, now you'll probably be thinking that these are pretty small boxes and we're going to need to do some shifting around, and that's true. So I'm going to go to Layout, and I'm going to change the height the whole table again. I'm going to change Auto Fit to Contents. Okay, so now I've got these teeny little things, but they're going to spread out to be as big as I need them to be. Okay, so for this first column, if I look at the first column in my output file, the first column is the region of France. So I'm going to go ahead and type region here. Okay, then I look and I go across, and just so to ease of flipping through, I'm actually going to put in split screen, just so I don't have to flip back and forth nearly as much. Now my second column is N. We're trying to be helpful and capitalize that for me, but I actually don't want it to do that, so I'll tell it to leave it alone. The next column is mean. The abbreviation for that in APA style is M. Median, the abbreviation is MDN. There is not an abbreviation for mode, so I'm going to spell that out. The abbreviation for standard deviation is SD. The abbreviation for minimum is min. Maximum is max. And then I'm going to have two columns here for the 25th and 75th percentiles. Now if you notice, I didn't write out percentile here because I want to save some space. Plus I want to do a little trick with it later. Now, according to APA style, you're going to need to italicize all the words that have been abbreviated. So I'm going to go ahead and italicize N, mean, and median, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bold the whole top row. I did those with the keyboard shortcuts. You can do it with bold and italic back here on the home ribbon too. Okay, so I want to have a column, another row here. I want to split these cells so I can have a percentiles label, so I don't have to type out, 25th percentile. I could 25th percentile and 75th percentile. But the problem with that is it looks kind of funny. It takes up a lot of space, and I want to have some space over here for to spread some of these things out. So I'm going to go ahead and undo those changes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight this whole row and hit insert below up here in the full screen this again in the table tools layout ribbon. So I'm going to insert a row below here, and I'm actually going to cut and paste the 25 and 75 down here. Okay, and then up here I'm going to merge these two cells and just put percentile. Okay, now I can see this percentile and 25th and 75th. But I've also got all this stuff over here that looks strange now. So to fix that, I'm going to merge these cells vertically. And you do have to do them one at a time, otherwise the pieces will all go away. And then I change the alignment up here, and I'm going to change them to be center aligned and centered horizontally and vertically. Okay, now you can see this table doesn't take up nearly as much space as if I'd spelled out 25th percentile and 75th percentile, and it still clearly shows everything I need to show. Okay, so at this point, now that I've got things spread out, or I got all my labels in here, I'm going to go back and auto fit window so that now things spread out and it's not so condensed. APA style is also to have all these center aligned, okay, so that they will all line up nice and neatly, except for this first column which you leave left aligned. Okay, so now it's just a matter of putting in my information. So I'm going to go back to split screen to make this a little easier on myself. Okay, so now it's just a matter of copying these over. So I'll just take a minute to do that. So it's APA style to report to 2 decimal places. There are some exceptions to that. For example, if you have a p-value that is less than 0.01, then you report to 3 decimal places. But we'll get to that when we get down to our inferential test in just a minute here. So if you just look at the data while I'm entering all the values in the table, you can see that it does appear that there may be some regional differences already. If we're just looking at the descriptive statistics, you may already notice that the Bordeaux and Rhone regions seem to be quite a bit higher than the Languedoc and Burgundy regions. So we'll have to run our ANOVA in order to figure out if that's accurate. Looks like these did not get aligned how they're supposed to, so I'll go back and change that just to make them consistent with everything else. Okay, so now I've got my descriptive statistics table. The only thing left to do is to create the title. So to create a table title, you first need to number the table. This is the first table I'm making, so I'm going to call it Table 1. And then I need to insert a title, a descriptive title that will completely explain to the reader what's being summarized in this table. In APA style, tables need to be standalone elements, so you need to be able to interpret the table fully without referring to any other text. So I'll put in descriptive statistics for ratings of French wines grouped by production region. Okay. Now the actual title is in italics, and all major words are capitalized, just like you would in any other title. And notice that now you can interpret this quite well without having to refer to anything else. Okay. So now if I flip back to my analysis, I conducted a one-way ANOVA to see if there were statistically significant differences in rating according to region of production. I ran an ANOVA because I have 4 groups here. I need to protect my family-wise error rate at 0.05. So in order to do that, I will conduct an ANOVA test. And looks like my ANOVA came back with a significant difference. So it does appear that region of production does make a difference in the rating of the wine. Now, because ANOVA is just a gateway test, this is the omnibus hypothesis that all regions were equal. I don't know yet which regions are actually different, though, like I mentioned earlier, I have my suspicions based on the descriptive statistics. But in order to keep reporting in APA style, I need to put the ANOVA table into APA style. So let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns and 4 rows. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to move this back. These need to be double spaced. Now, if you were doing an APA style manuscript, each table would start on its own page. And to practice that, I'm going to follow up on that. So I'm going to insert a page break, which is either you can use by hitting Control Enter. Page break is nice because it separates out, so you don't have to have all those carriage returns that can screw up your formatting if something changes later. The other way to insert a page break is to go to Page Layout and Breaks and Page. I'm going to leave that second page break there just because I'm going to need it in a little while. Okay, so I got my first table on that first page, and I come down here to my second page, and I'm going to have Table 2, and this is going to be ANOVA table for rating of French wines by region. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Insert. I need my 4 by 6 table. I'm not going to do the borders the long way like I did last time. I'll show you the quick way this time around. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back into split screen mode. So an ANOVA table is very standardized. Start with source, then sum of squares is abbreviated SS, degrees of freedom is DF. Word's going to want to capitalize that for you. You can tell Word no thank you. Mean square is MS, F, and then SPSS calls p-values significance. So you need to put a P. All 5 of these are italicized. And this whole row needs to be center aligned, okay, as do all these cells. Okay. Now if you notice, the table is currently double spaced. You do not need to double space tables in APA style, so I'm going to turn that off. In fact, it's nice to leave them not double spaced, because then they won't take up as much space in your manuscript or in your final paper. Okay. Now I'm going to uncheck first column because I don't need these values to be bold over here. Now SPSS will typically produce between groups, within groups, and total. I'm going to rename those as my between groups factor. My between groups variable is region. Within groups is the same as error, and then I'll leave total like it is. So again, I come over here and I start inputting values, remembering that APA style is to report 2 decimal places. Now notice here that SPSS has the significance, or the p-value, listed as 0.000. This p is not actually 0. That's a mathematical impossibility. What's going on here is SPSS reports 3 decimal places and it just chops things off. So the correct APA format for that is to write less than 0.001. Okay, since that's what it's really indicating. Okay, so now I've got my ANOVA table all set up. The decimal points should all line up. So if I go here and I give 2 spaces, the decimal points now line up. And if I go here, 2 spaces, the decimal points now line up. Here, because there aren't decimal places, you don't need to have them line up. It's okay to leave it like this. Okay, so now I've got my ANOVA table. If I flip back to my output, I've got my post hocs for the test, my post hoc test for the comparison. Just for interest's sake, it looks like yes, Languedoc is less than Bordeaux and less than Rhône. Burgundy is also less than Bordeaux and less than Rhône. And then Bordeaux is higher than Languedoc and Burgundy, but not different than Rhône. So just like we thought when we looked up here at the descriptive statistics, it looks like these 2 are significantly greater than these 2, but there's no difference between Languedoc and Burgundy, and no difference between Bordeaux and Rhône. So we'll report those values in text. We don't need to copy and make a table out of this, though if we wanted to, we could. And if we were making our own table, we would not include all the redundancy, like Languedoc and Burgundy is the same as Burgundy and Languedoc, so we'd not need to report it twice. If you notice, the standard errors and p-values are the same. All it changes is the sign of the mean difference. Now I also created a graph of the means of the 4 regions, just because visually that will help show our point that Languedoc and Burgundy are quite a bit lower than Bordeaux and Rhône. So I'm going to include this in my write-up. So I'm going to right-click and copy, and then I'll go back to my Word document. And again, figures come after tables when you're writing according to APA style, and they all go at the very end of your manuscript after your reference section but before your appendices. Alright, and here's my graph. But now my figure needs a caption. So the formatting is a little different for figures than for tables. The assigning a number to the figure, just like you do for a table, but that is in italic and followed by a period, and then you type the caption, uppercase and lowercase, just like you would a normal sentence. So here I will put the mean ratings of French wines grouped by region of production. Okay, so that's all there is to it. Now I have an APA style figure and I have two APA style tables. So that's all we're going to cover in this tutorial. You can check out my other tutorials on other aspects of APA style. But until then, good luck with your writing.